Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 of the SEQFC Look Finance. That's called the Look Finance SEQFC preview show with thanks to Vilic Law. I'm Darren Lutton, one of the admins there. We've just clocked up 10,000 members, so we're all very excited at Castle SEQFC. So thank you everyone for joining and sticking around. We really appreciate your support. This is, of course, the Gold Coast show, and we have got with us Mark Madge from Football Gold Coast. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon. How are you, Darren?
Very well, mates. We've got Brett Budwee from Palm Beach. I can't get rid of him. He's right on the subs bench. People keep pulling out. We have to drag him back every time.
Hey Darren. How boys? They going?
Good. And of course, we've got the winner, the winner, the grinner. It's Kirk. Kirk, how are you, mate?
Good, guys. How are you, gents? All right.
Good. All right. Now, we're going to start with you, Kirk. 8-0. 8-0 to win the league. Take us through the day.
I tell you what, about 2 o'clock, 2:30, you wouldn't have thought a game was going to play. You know, the reserves rocked up. It was belting down, absolutely belting down. Then come to the Premier League game, and we were unsure if we're going to play at our place, get changed, not play. But I tell you what, that is a statement and a half. 8-0. It was probably over in the first 20 minutes, to be fair. And that's credit to Coomera. They come out. They rested a few of their key players, obviously for finals, but we couldn't do anything about that. We just had to go out and do our stuff, and the boys produced some goals that easily would be in the top goals this year, the highlights package. Unbelievable, some of the goals they scored. It was just a great afternoon of football. You know, what more can you ask for? You know, pissing down rain, 8-0, 7-0 on the reserve grade. Palm Beach hadn't even kicked off and we're already 4-0 up, I think. So, and then obviously, and then Palm Beach unfortunately got beat against Rabina, so we didn't have to win.
What was the mood going into the game, Kirk? Was everyone nervous? Was everyone edgy?
I wouldn't. No, the coach was nervous. The coach was very nervous. The players were pretty cruisy, to be fair. I think the players just knew if they had to perform on the park, that they would get the result they required. But yeah, I think Alex, he's a bit cagey. It's a bit nervous. Not sure what's going to happen. It's raining, and it wasn't raining. It was pissing down. You know, it wasn't small rain. And the ground was cut underwater, so it was unsure what was going to happen. But once the game kicked off, Justin Barwick scored an absolute cracking goal in the first 5 minutes, and that set the tone for the rest of the day. Game on, it was fun. Yeah, great day to be down there watching as well. So
it's funny watching the highlights. I was looking to see if there was one particular goal that had more of a celebration than others, but they all seemed pretty consistent, didn't they?
They did. Yeah. I think it was after probably the third went in. I think that was Tomo scored the third. It was almost like that's it, like the league's done now. That's all ours. So obviously a few boys scored who hadn't scored all year too. I think Brad hadn't scored all year. Matty Harris scored a good cracking goal. Justin Barwick, like I said before. I think when Bruno scored his second goal, he come down to the crowd and sort of jumped in the crowd and gave a bit of a hug to all the supporters. So every goal was celebrated. It was just like game on. Trophy's ours. Unfortunately, I don't have it. It's still at Bruno's house, our captain.
And tell us about those celebrations.
They're still going.
Good.
Yeah. No, well, the boys hung around at Coomera, and we appreciate Coomera for having us at the game. They hung around there for a bit, and then they went to the clubhouse. They drank our bar dry, which is obviously it's great. You know, the boys loved it. I think they went out afterwards. Excuse me. They went to our sponsors. They've been celebrating all week. We're glad we've got that sort of week off because the boys will be struggling to play on Saturday because they're still going.
Mark, we were talking last week about you being in the car, sort of working out which way to go. Tell us how the day panned out for you.
Well, I was actually at Palm Beach at first, winning their premiership, so congratulations to those boys. Fantastic. And it was pouring. I spoke to Brett a lot of that time saying what are we thinking? What's going to happen? Are we going to, you guys going to call it off? Are you not? And there was actually a lightning delay in the Palm Beach game, which resulted in their kickoff being pushed back about half an hour, 40 minutes or so. So that after the presentation, obviously Surfers kicked off. And then I saw a goal go in after the 2nd minute and a goal go in after the 10th minute. So I was like, okay, I mean, if worst comes to worst, I can at least head there, see what happens in this current situation. Knowing the team at Coomera ran out prior to kickoff earlier in the week as well, I had a lot of conversations. So I knew that it was probably going to be hard for them to rally back after 10 minutes of the game. So I managed to get up there. It was already 3 or 4-0 at that stage. I think it was 3. So I still managed to watch a decent half, and a good half, and more of football. So it worked out okay in that aspect for me personally. I think for a neutral for both sides, I would have seen a bit of more pressure cooker if games were tight. Palm Beach within those situations would be good in one way to see how people resolve the pressure. But I think obviously when Surfers came out and did the job early, it sort of changed everything for everyone. I'm sure Brett will, add his game as well. And his boys running on the field, knowing that Surfers are 3-0 up, that little extra intensity probably is not there. You're not pushing for those tackles and those things probably would if you knew you had some sort of a chance, not risking injuries and suspensions. But one thing I would add is on Surface's game is if you look at their 8 goals, Teddy Watson, who's our top scorer in our league, congratulations to Teddy, didn't score a single goal. So if you looked at their first 5, when it was 5 or 6-0, they had Bruno scoring a double, one which was a header, which is very unlike him, and Justin Barwick, Matt Harris, Brad Scott on the score sheet. If you told anyone in our league who knows those players were going to be on that score sheet, they wouldn't have believed you. I would have given you absolutely any odds on those players scoring at that point in time, and for Teddy Watson not to score a goal. So it just shows, that those players specifically, lifted for that game and knew that what was at stake, especially, I think worth mentioning, Bruno, the game that he played as their captain, knowing the importance of this game, probably his best game I've seen him play, period. But overall, interesting afternoon football.
Brett, what was your take on events?
Yeah, it was a weird one, mate. I said last week it was going to be like a roller coaster, but we got on the wrong ride. And, we had the lightning strike. There was a half an hour delay in reserve grade. There was talk of us not playing at all, which I think affected us more than anything else. And as a coach, I probably made a mistake there in mentioning it to the players. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything to them. But, like Mark said, by the time we kicked off, it was 3-0 to Surface. And the Rabina people made sure we knew what the score was, which was to their advantage. And I think, the first 15, 20 minutes were a little bit, the heads weren't in it. So maybe that had an effect on us, and they got an early goal. The conditions didn't really suit us at all. It was so wet. The ball was stopping everywhere. We battered them. I thought we had the better of them, for the majority of the game. We just couldn't get it in. Their goalkeeper was playing like Peter Schmeichel. Justin Bradley was like Van Dijk at the back there. And to Rabina's credit, we were having shots and they were getting 2 or 3 players in front of the ball every time. They were desperate. The conditions suited that sort of a game. We just couldn't get any flow. But by half time, it was 6-0 at Surface Paradise and Coomera. The season was done. We had the reserve grade celebrating like it was the end of the century. So it was really, really mixed emotions, even in the club afterwards. We got the reserve grade drinking out of the cup and the first grade boys there watching them, which, makes us a little bit more hungry. But, yeah, like I say, it wasn't the roller coaster I expected it to be.
For sure. All right. Any bitterness towards Coomera for their team selection?
From us?
Yeah.
Not really. Steve sent me a message prior to the game explaining it, you know what I mean? So it wasn't a surprise. And I suppose if I was in the same boat, I would look at resting players. I talked to the Federation about the 4 yellow card thing. where clubs are having to rest players if they're on their fourth yellow so they don't miss out in the semi-finals. I think look at that. Maybe the yellow cards don't carry over to the semi-finals. But the scoreline, the 8-0 scoreline, is not a good result for any team to lose at home. I know if that happened here at Palm Beach, I'd be going back into the club afterwards. I'll tell you that much. But they did what they had to do, and there's no real bitterness. No, not at all.
Okay, Mark, let's talk about the result with Robina winning. That, of course, cements their place in the four at the expense of Burleigh Heads, who had a 3-0 victory.
Yeah, obviously, Robina making the top four there for the first time in 25 years. It's a funny stat. Obviously, everyone hears in that group that Nathan put up there that both our league winners this year were undefeated, and both are going to be playing teams in the semi-finals that they both beat in the first round 10-0. That 10-0 result was the only big outlier, apart from the 8-0 as well in the last game, but those were only two big outliers in the whole season that was in our Gold Coast Premier League. Obviously, crazy results. We've had 5-all draws. We've had 7-5 wins. But overall, look at those two results from the surface, the outliers. It's sheer, determination and will factor to win. They got good players. They signed good players. They're not denying that they brought in quality players, and they're not denying that they had to, use some resources to get them. What they did, though, I think the turning point for Burleigh, and I thought this at that point in time, the game that they had at home against Robina. If you go back to that game, without Curtis Stoney and without Brandon Reeves, that two of their better players in that attacking options, and no Danny Grizic as well. But then to go beat Burleigh, basically the competition area today, to have that opportunity to make the four and make the four. Burleigh will look at it as missed opportunities. Again, I spoke to Philo after the weekend. He's obviously upset. He goes, it just shows, the difference at times. After their game, they were still 1-0 at Robina, obviously with the delayed kickoff, and all their players were sort of waiting to see the final result, see what would happen. And when they obviously saw the final result, it was like the season just ended for them. It wasn't like a progressive ending. It was just a full stop. I would, it's a short season, 8 teams. You can't have an expanded final series, but it'd be some interesting matchups. If we had a top 6, for example, I know you would never have it in an 8-team competition, but this is one of the first things that I can probably see versus the Rain and a Robina versus Burleigh, a knockout semi. You see, you wouldn't think it. I think it was that close. Again, table never lies, and credit to Robina and everything that they've managed to put in to get into the top 4. And now they know they have obviously a harder challenge in surface. On the way they're playing, they'll fancy themselves against anyone, I think.
Southport Nerang match got called off on the weekend. Is that going to be rescheduled, or are they just going to let it slide?
That's being played tonight. The main reason that has to be played, obviously, the first round, but it's a reserve grade fixture. Reserves if Southport is 2 or more goals. And I think Nerang need to win the game to make sure that they finish in the 3rd spot rather than 4th, or something along those lines with goal difference as well. So both those games are going to get played, though. I think it's important for us to continue to make sure that if we only had one game, we would open up that team runs out. But having 2 games, you still need to field 2 teams on the day. It'll be interesting, obviously, tonight. Hopefully, we've had storms around the southeast the past couple of days. It's washed out a couple of our metros and whatnot. But hopefully, fingers crossed that we get that last fixture in today, and then we'll know our final dynamic, our reserve grade league.
Of course, the season's end now for Burleigh, Nerang and Southport. Which of those teams do you think will be happiest with how they went this season?
Look, I think Southport overall will look at it and in a bonus that they survived the playoff spot. I know that was their target all year. Burleigh will not be happy with their season. They have too much quality in key areas to not make the top 4. I still think overall as a team, this is nothing against Robina, but overall the players they have in positions playing finals football. Not that big players shouldn't as well, but you would expect as double winners that they would have made the 4 this year. But again, losing some players, from their existing squad, they had to rebuild. The slow start probably hurt them more than anything. Some stupid points that they dropped. But again, you can say that about any team who dropped points throughout the year that they shouldn't have dropped. In hindsight's a great thing. Narang, a lot of expectations going there. It's hard in the first year to try to transition a whole playing group to another club to try get that instant success. They got hit with injuries like crazy. It was a tough season down there for them. I can only imagine. I do hear that it looks like they're going to wind it all back and keep it going and roll on next year with the same sort of playing group, the core group, which is good. I do want to see. I still think that core group with a few additions can make a good run next year. Come back. So I like the fact that they're all going to stick it out from what I hear. Again, I could be wrong. So I think we should achieve great things. Pre-COVID and pre-everything came to fruition. I think Kirk was the only one a few coaches tipped. I think everyone thought they'd make the top 4. No one thought they'd push it to the last day. I'm pretty confident 7 out of the 8 coaches, obviously the 8th being Alex, but the 7 other coaches tipped Surface to win it, and they did. So, overall, I think Southport would be the happiest of those 3 teams.
All right. Now, Broadbeach, fighting for their Premier League survival. Brett, I know that you were at the game. Broadbeach got a 4-1 victory. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I called in there. I watched probably up to half time. The weather wasn't the best. Broadbeach were on top. Runaway Bay played a pretty expansive game, and they got caught out a couple of times there. But Danny Morton played really well. I left before the end of the game, but Danny Morton played really well. He sort of controlled the game. You'd expect that from someone who's played NPL, playing against the Coast League 1 team. And Aberdare up front for them played really well from what I've seen as well. They've got Premier League players everywhere. And Runaway Bay are still sort of filling in holes a little bit, I think, as far as Premier League standard. And it showed a little bit on the other night. But, anything can happen in the return fixture. Nathan will learn from that game. Got nothing to lose. But I think Broadbeach, just the experience with more glad open the line the other night anyway.
Mark, would you like to jump in there?
I think, look, the first 10 minutes, it was 2-0, and you'd probably think, this is going to end up being ugly. Then they they came back into it, and then I think it went 3-0 in the second half. It was 3, and then Runaway Bay scored a goal. And I think it sort of showed that, hold on a second, we're not just going to lay down here. And then they started playing a bit. They started having more of the ball. They started to push a bit more. And then what cost, I'm not going to say it's going to cost them the tie, but a real changer was an defensive error they made for the 4th goal. You'll see on the highlights when they come out, it's an error you can't make in these big games. If you go to Bay 3-1 down, you still got an away goal, and anything can happen on the Saturday. But with 4, it just makes that a little bit hard. You've got to go out and score 3 and concede none. And I'm going to say it openly because I'm not scared of the comments. I believe in what I say. Broadbeach looked like they could score every time they went forward, really. Every time they pressed forward, they were that one pass or Runaway Bay with a block shot, or keeper would pull off a good save. So, it's going to be hard to hold them out. But that one error killed them. The defender could have just cleared it out, kicked it to the wild players and take the one goal into the second leg. They nick the ball, sub goes in, scores, makes it 4-1, makes it a bit more relaxed for Broadbeach on the weekend. But as Brett said, you can't go from playing Surface, Palm Beach, Burleigh, Coomera's, Narangs, week in, week out, losing a goal here, goal there, last minute kicks, like this, that, going to play Coast League 1 team and not have that second. And they showed they still the things that they were doing in the game, their attacks forward and their plays, they were still trying to do in the Premier League, but obviously playing against better defenders, better midfielders, they'd get that foot in there. They'd cut that pass off. Runaway Bay being young, it's a bit harder for them as well because they haven't seen a team like that all year. No disrespect to Kingscliff and Musgrave, but then still not at that same level as what those Premier League clubs were for the duration of the year, and it showed. But to even fact that we got the game played, it shows Broadbeach's pitch was fantastic. Credit to their, George Pentecost, he's the senior director there. He was out there with a broom, and Jason Evans sweeping the field, trying to get the water dispersed, which they did. And credit to the Gold Coast, you guys came out. Bay had fantastic support. Shout out, they had the drums going. Every single round at the bar was 12 to 15 beers, and that's what you want to see in local football, especially considering the year we've had. But just general support from the wider Gold Coast. I saw a lot of Premier League coaches, Coast League coaches down there as well. Considering the weather, it was great. It was great to see.
All right. That's pretty much the show for today. But before we go, just a couple of things. Kirk and Brett, do either of you have a really good wet weather story?
Yeah, I have one. Mark knows it, actually. We were playing at Merrimack 2013, Mark. I think it was against the Knights. And literally, when you walked out onto the field, your boots was covered in water. That's how deep it was. This was at half-time. The Knights were leading 1-0. I think the pressure was on. At that stage, there was a bit of Knights influence on the board, or so we thought, and the game decided to go on, and they end up beating us 1 or 2-0 or something. And the last goal come from a guy named Violet Thurtell, who used to play for Brisbane Roar, and I think the goalkeeper passed him the ball, stopped halfway in between, and the Knights guy come and scored. And I'm on the sideline going off my head because it shouldn't have even been played. But yeah, that's one. I've probably got a few others, but that's one that comes to memory, and Mark was involved in that one too. So.
What about you, Kirk?
No waterlogged surface. Lex Bell doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no puddles on there.
No puddles at all at our place. Mine would probably be back in the UK when I played for a bit in the snow. Obviously, being an Australian boy going over there and playing in the snow, that was unusual. Orange ball, couldn't see the lines. And then obviously when it's not snowing, it's frozen solid, so it's like playing on concrete. No slide tackling. So yeah, that's about it. But yeah, up surfers, nothing. Our pitch is mint. So it can rain an hour. It's playable. So yeah, nothing up there.
And coastline, Broadbeach, surfers, Palm Beach, you can play all conditions. It does not matter. And to be fair, I'll give Coomera this. I thought their pitch was going to be underwater. I rang Kirk a couple times to say what's going on, and their pitch was actually perfect, which is,
We heard that the game had been moved to Surfers Paradise, and that it wasn't going ahead. And then next thing you know, it's 3-0. So, like I say, it was that roller coaster. It was unbelievable.
I hadn't marked the lines. That's what the game was. That's probably one story. Yeah, I've actually marked the lines once, and then half an hour later that they were gone because of the rain. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, we've certainly had a deluge this week. Now, just finally, we've got our Gold Coast Premier League Player of the Season award poll going at the moment. Thanks to Mark for the nominations of all the players.
Still miss some of my players, though.
What was that?
You did miss some of my nominations, though. So to those boys that missed out, I think there was one particular name that was missed out that some people weren't happy about and got a bit of comments there.
How is Brad Scott not in there? How is Brad Scott not in there? He might win the whole thing and it's not in there.
So who are you voting for, guys?
I think any of the ones that are at the top at the moment would be worthy winners, you know what I mean? I see you can vote for everyone if you want. How does that work?
That's what I might do. Vote for everyone.
But yeah, obviously Dylan Barwick, I think, is leading it. He's a great young lad, could play NPL, so any of them be worthy.
I agree with you.
What about you, Kirk?
I mean, I agree with you. Teddy, I like Teddy this year. He was good. Obviously, we're biased, being surfers. Unfortunately, Brad's not there. But Sam King I like from Palm Beach. I don't know how many votes he got, but I quite like his little skill down the wing. It was good. Yeah.
I think for us, Mark, you might know this. Fumia, I think he's the only player at our club that's played every minute of every game this year.
I'm actually in the process of working that out, funny enough, but Brad Scott also has played
Yeah.
every minute of every game. I think Jackson Boyd, your keeper as well, but keepers don't really count. But
I'll tell him that.
It doesn't count. It's easier to play 4 teams straight as a keeper than it is to
Yeah.
outfield play, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that Fumi's in. But I know definitely Brad Scott is as well. I got that brought to my attention specifically, but I think Fumi as well. I'm not too sure. I could be talking out of school. I don't think Matt Hilton has missed a minute either. I can't think of a game that he's been subbed that I've been watching Burley, and I think he's played all 14. Don't quote me on it, but we're going to be coming out with our little Iron Man list, hopefully, soon, as we're obviously working on. There's a whole lot of things coming up. So apart from the SEQ player of the year, we obviously have our player of the year to come out, coach's player of the year, team of the year. We're shortlisting our top 32 players, which is coming out soon. So I'll get that as a plug.
Mark, will there be a presentation night this year like the Football Gold Coast one, or
Presentation night.
nothing?
No. This issue we've had. The amount of people that can enter in the venue that we normally have. Plus, by the time we count Football Gold Coast delegates, staff of the actual place, of the host, we'll only be able to fit in 90 people, and those 90 people would have to be seated at 4 per table. So it wouldn't even work out well. We're doing everything virtually though, so you'll keep an eye for our Brownlow style announcement of 3-2-1s that we're working on. For the main Tony Checo medal, and then obviously the coach's player of the year will get announced as well as the coach of the year, so which they still have to vote on. But fun time to the end of the season.
All right. I'd also like to mention a big thank you to Finn McCool's, the bar down the Gold Coast. They have supported the poll, and the winner is going to get a bar tab of a. Let's just say that a winner of one of the other awards got a $100 bar tab, and they promised that they were going to top that. So we don't know the full amount, but whoever wins it is going to be in for a great night, and make sure all the teammates are along there as well.
Yeah.
I'll speak to the owner, see if we can get some more money. I think I know.
You would.
All right, guys, that's the show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Mark, Kirk, and Brett for their time today. This has been the Look Finance SEQFC preview show. With thanks to Village Law. We'll see you next week for the semis.
Thank you. See you later.
Yeah.